Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you had a great holiday break. We're going to move on here. I know things are tough, and I know you probably are not too motivated to do some schoolwork today, but I'm going to keep it short today. I just want to talk a little bit about freedom of the press since we just went over freedom of speech and many court cases describing freedom of speech. Today, I just want to talk about freedom of press, okay, prior restraint, and then near versus Minnesota. Before you guys check that out, though, I'd like you to read page 371. Okay, it is chapter 13, section 4. All right, I will write that in the post for you to check that out and read it. I want you to read Judge Controls Courtroom. Okay, and obviously I want you to read Prior Restraint, Forbidden, and Near versus Minnesota. Okay, those are the only things I want you to read and look over today. That's pretty much it. So check that out. I want to talk to you today a little bit about Near versus Minnesota and prior restraint. So moving on here. Grab this up. Okay. All right, so freedom of the press. So we talked about freedom of speech before. Obviously, we talked about some of the restrictions on that, depending if it is trying to create chaos, if it's going to try to provoke any type of danger and hostility. So obviously, you just can't say and do whatever you want. There's limitations to it, and depending on how you're doing that with symbolic speech, pure speech, or any type of representative speech, whatever it means, it has to be a way to protect those and not harm or inflict danger to others. Same thing goes to press, freedom of the press. So what includes press? Books, newspapers, magazines, radio, television, internet, right? Social media, big thing nowadays. Okay. So with that, I want to talk to you today a little bit about, obviously we'll go over radio and television a little bit more later, but so number one, stations obtain license from FCC, Federal Communication Commissions. And the FCC requires stations to follow certain guidelines in presenting programs. All right. So obviously, this is a way to try to, moderate what is being shown to the population. It is a way to try to prevent any type of wrongdoing, or, it really tries to express ratings on different types of TV shows, movies, to try to prevent any type of obscene viewership, right? Let's say it's someone who is 14, 12 years old. That's why you see the viewer discretion is advised. You see the G ratings, PG-13, R, X, whatever it might be, right? There's a lot of different ratings on shows and television to try to prevent any type of wrongful viewership, I guess. Okay. 1997, court ruled that cable television has more First Amendment protection from government regulation than other broadcasters, but not such as publishers, magazines, newspapers. And we'll talk about that. It will expand that a little bit in the reading. So I'll let you guys read over that and check it out. It's pretty interesting, okay, and how through television, radio, and although many of these broadcasting companies can really express or show what they want, they're limited to what they can actually say, right? Obviously with curse words, different types of I guess you say guidelines of what they can present to their audience, depending on what their, I guess you say, missions are, right? Depending on what type of audience they're looking to reach. And obviously, if it's a kid's show, they can't be explaining terrible, obscene things, right? All right, so we're going to talk about this a little bit more when we get to movies and things like that. But protecting news sources. This goes along well with what we're going to talk about today with Near versus Minnesota. So many reporters argue that freedom of press gives them the refuse to reveal confidential sources. Okay, so shield laws are information or sources in state courts. This is a federal shield law, but even state laws set limits on reporters. Okay, these shield laws are set and established to try to prevent any type of, you could say, wrongdoing in the courtroom. Okay, any type of information that is sent to many people and the audiences to try to protect those who are, let's say, being viewed against, right? Whoever's being, in court against. In many cases, which we're going to explain a little bit more, a gag order, right? This is to try to prevent any type of media in the courtroom because it might cause an uproar. It might cause a difference of opinion with the jurors, depending on how much publicized, how much publication there is of this court case. Obviously, if there's many, if there's many people taking pictures or taking videos in the courtroom or filming to a live audience, this might cause a interruption in the courtroom because there's so much appeal to it. There's so much audience. There might be people standing and applauding. There might be people viewing their own opinion about the court case, which might cause a disruption in the decision. All right, let's leave it to professionals, right? And with the judge making his decisions. And in many cases, there's I guess you could say a jurisdiction on how much press and limited press there should be in the courtroom, depending on the appeal of the court case, things like that. All right, so prior restraint is censorship of information before it's published. Supreme Court has ruled that the press may be censored in advance only in cases relating directly to national security. So obviously, this might cause anarchy, cause violent uprisings, protests throughout the streets. Prior restraint's needed, right? There should be some sort of censorship depending on what information is being presented to the people in order to try to prevent a huge rebellion. Okay. In many cases, like Near versus Minnesota, this helped establish free press means freedom from government of censorship. So Near versus Minnesota, this is an interesting case in 1931 where in Minnesota there was prior restraint, there was government censorship of many things that you couldn't talk badly about public officials. Many of the newspapers, magazines, radios were calling these people gangsters and corrupt politicians. And it came to a point where there was a law actually established to try to prevent the media from saying these sort of things about public officials, which, okay, yeah, I can get it. But maybe if they are doing wrongdoing, it should be presented to the American people, right? So with that, Near versus Minnesota concluded a 5-4 decision that government censorship cannot take away from the, I guess you say, the sending of information to the people, right? It can't interrupt in that decision making. It can't interrupt into that display or presentation to the American people. So in magazines, newspapers, if they have evidence behind it, if it's not any type of defamatory speech or libel, slander, right, then it can be published. It can be said, right, that the government can't censor all that information because they're trying to protect public officials. That's not fair, right? If there's public officials doing wrongdoing, it should be said. It should be heard. Okay, it should be expressed into the media. It's almost as a way to keep the government in line and in check, and that the media is supposed to be almost what it should be is teller of information to the people. Tell them the truth. Tell them the support. Obviously, today there's a lot of fake news, things like that. But for the most part, you got to keep everything in line and keep everybody in the right. All right, I got to get going. See you guys. Take care.